Deku is a hypocrite. So if you've been on YouTube, particularly My Hero Academia YouTube videos, you see that there's honestly quite a bit of videos harping on why My Hero Academia sucks. Now, I want to make clear that's not what I'm here to really do, but the plan is to basically first look at this trope of painting this person, the protagonist, as a nobody, but them being a very super somebody, and then looking at closely with Deku and My Hero Academia. So, a little history about this video. This video is inspired by Plague of Gripes Naruto Hypocrite video, because I believe that Deku pretty much goes through the same issues that Naruto went through, as pointed out in that video. For when it comes to characters in shonen that are first presented to us as this nobody becoming a somebody, it is executed pretty well, even though, in all honesty, with My Hero Academia, this honestly falls apart after like the second or third episode, given that right after like episode 2 or 3, Deku pretty much like gains All Might's quirk, which is the most powerful quirk, mind you, and it just so happened to be transferable. And we not only see this with like Naruto and Deku, but I'll also say like Asta falls into this category from Black Clover, given that, oh, he's just an orphan boy with no grimoire or magic, to turn out getting the most unique grimoire and happen to be coming from like this demon race. Like at this point, this trope of having the character, primarily the protagonist, be a no one, being a very special someone, has literally become a trope at this point. And I believe that this honestly is filled by isekais, given that majority of the isekais, like before the person is isekai, they are just regular normal people that the nobody to somebody tries to paint but just fails at it, especially over time. So getting back to My Hero Academia, it pretty much starts out with, hey, there's this boy named Deku who comes from a moderately poor family, and he also has no quirk in a world where the majority of the population has a quirk. Now, the main thing I'm going to point out first off is that it says that he's like a part of a small minority, but it says 20% of the world doesn't have a quirk, and I'm sorry, but that's not small. That still makes up like millions of people, I believe. But continuing on this track, the biggest issue I have is that it pretty much sets up the story as if Deku is going to attempt to become a hero even without a quirk. But no, like an episode or two later, Deku just so happens to find out All Might's secret, and it just so happens that All Might is the number one hero and is literally the strongest person in the world. And it just so happens that his powerful quirk is transferable, and it just so happened that All Might was looking for a successor. And pretty much soon after that, we see Deku training. Now, I already know people are going to be like, well, oh, Deku had to train before he gained his quirk. But it's like, in all honesty, who wouldn't train if they were told that they were going to get the most powerful quirk in the world? Like, if my mom told me to clean up my room when I was little, like, without no, like, give, I would be less likely to do it. But if she told me, hey, if you clean up your room, I get you McDonald's, of course, best to believe I am going to clean up my room, because she's offering me something in exchange. And that's the same case here. I'm pretty sure anyone would have been willing to, like, put in the effort to build their body up to, if they knew they were getting a very powerful quirk at the end of it. So I admit I was one of those people who thought that Deku should have went the entire series without a quirk. But I admit y'all made some good arguments that there was no way Deku was going to make it without a quirk. And I'm like, okay, but I still believe that he got All Might's quirk way too early. He literally did nothing to even gain it. So I feel like a solution to this nobody to somebody for My Hero Academia, in my belief, would have been to just have Deku train, not knowing he was going to gain a quirk. Because before he even bumped into All Might, he already had the choice, or made the choice, to still apply to UA, even though he had no quirk. So I believe the best action for him to take was actually to take the same road Shinzo take. I'm sorry, but Shinzo was robbed. I feel like Shinzo is the character Deku was supposed to be. Honestly, a lot of characters in My Hero Academia is the character Deku was supposed to be in being a nobody. I feel like Eraserhead fulfills this and not being like, strength-wise powerful. I believe Mirio fulfills this, given that like his quirk wasn't that great either, but had to work hard on it. And various others like that Karate Kid with just a strong tail definitely had to work hard to just be able to be a hero, because Eraserhead even noted how like it's extremely difficult to get in a UA with just a mutation, which is another frustrating thing. Like, they have a protagonist that they make a nobody to a somebody but just fumbles the bag with them so badly, yet they have 1,000,001 side characters that fulfills this aspect perfectly, which just makes zero sense to me. And going back to Shinzo, I didn't even know UA had other departments until it was noted later on that they had other departments, like the hero helping department. So I actually think it would have been best to have Deku get into that first, while like, he's helping the heroes and such, especially given how great he is at noting like the enhancements and improvements heroes can make to their attacks and such. No, because that entrance exam was just so awful. Like, first off, going back to Shinzo, I know, I'm sorry. He was robbed. How in the world did the invisible girl get in, but not him? Because his quirk doesn't work on robots. But an invisible girl gets in? And plus they let Deku participate, which at the time he stated himself, he literally just noted that he had no quirk. Yet they wouldn't let Shinzo participate because his quirk doesn't work on robots. That makes zero sense, okay? That's just ridiculous. And them letting Deku and Uraraka in simply for for participation or whatever, what have you, was also extremely dumb. Like, no, that was such a pull, it wasn't even funny. Like, imagine if I applied to like Harvard or Yale and my like grades and SAT scores is awful, but they're like, we'll let you in because you tried. Like, no, that makes zero sense. They have 0 points. Like, what the heck? And Uraraka didn't even do anything. She just slapped Deku. So she didn't even destroy any robots herself. And I'm also curious how in the world they can deny Shinzo but not Eraserhead. Like, you couldn't tell me they didn't think, Shinzo reminds me of Eraserhead. But they're like, nah, he can't control robots. He's not in. And none of the villains we've seen so far are robots. I mean, admittedly, they've been no moves, which probably wouldn't work on them. But guess who they're controlled by? They're controlled by actual people, so it would still work. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Let's move on. But even with these flaws, I still stuck with Deku, primarily because they give the like handicap of that whenever he uses his quirk, his body is damaged. So I liked that aspect. But then they fumbled the bag when they gave him multiple quirks on top of an already OP quirk. Like, why would you give him more quirks? And then apparently, I didn't even know this, someone told me, they was like, oh, they just said how essentially no one but those with no quirks can inherit one for all, because if a person with the quirk inherits it, they will die pretty much like halfway through their lives because it burns through their life force or something like that. And so it's starting to become more and more like Deku was destined to inherit one for all, as opposed to him just randomly happening to bump into All Might to gain the quirk in the first place, thus making him less of a nobody and more of a somebody. And though it hasn't been revealed who his father is, I'm going to just go ahead and confront it just in case it does happen to be someone like All for One or someone very strong and powerful. We already got the hint with the doctor, which again I disliked because it's like, why do you need that to connect? But if his father turns out to be like All for One or a very powerful and strong person, then no, he's no longer a nobody. Like, at this point, he's done become like a whole prophetic child at this point, and that is not a nobody. So he goes through the same issues Naruto went through, in that they become less of a nobody and more of a very much somebody. And the main thing I hate about this is that they preach about changing the system, though all in all, they just solidify the system instead. Like Deku at the beginning of the series stated how he wanted to prove everyone wrong that you can become a hero without a quirk, yet episodes later he gets a quirk. The main reason he was bullied was because he had no quirk. But now that he has a quirk, there's no bullies, literally. At least that wasn't the case for Naruto, where no, people hated him exactly because he had Kurama inside of him. But once Deku gains a quirk, he's pretty much scot-free. No one mistreats him except for Bakugo, basically. And he can't even use that he came from a poor neighborhood as an excuse no more either, given that Bakugo came from the same place in school as he did, and Bakugo actually scored the highest on the entrance exam. At the end of the day, Deku says so himself, he is very blessed. Not only did he happen to get the most powerful quirk from the most powerful hero at the time, but he was also mentored by this powerful hero, got into a very great school where pro heroes are made, and was able to snag internships other pro heroes or wannabe pro heroes want to achieve. Not only did he mentor underneath All Might, but he mentored under Gran Torino and the new #1 hero, Endeavor. For at least with Naruto and I believe Asta too, they still had to prove themselves to the rest of their communities, because at the end of the day, just because Naruto finally became a genin, he was still not acknowledged by the village. And Asta, though he got into a magic guild, one, it was the lowest magic guild that was constantly made fun of, and two, he still had no magic. But the #1 reason Deku was bullied was because he had no quirk. That was the only reason. But he gains a quirk, and the only person that still bullies him about his past is Bakugo. But that's nothing different for just Deku, though he's definitely a lot more harsh on Deku. He is like that with pretty much everyone else. It's Bakugo-like for him to mess with everyone. So I would like to end this video off by just explaining how I believe Deku could have been a nobody and eventually stayed that way as opposed to becoming a very much somebody. My main solution would be, like I stated earlier, to hold off on giving him All Might's quirk that early. Have Deku get into UA, but in the hero helper course. That way, while he's doing that, he could still train himself. I could definitely see him training for the festival. And when the festival does come, he showcased, his hard work, though he still loses, but at least he got the attention of All Might at that point. And then, I guess, over the summer, they can train and, even have him gain one for all at that point. So then he can finally transfer over into the hero course. Obviously, this sounds very similar to how Shinzo got into the hero course. But when he eats All Might's hair, I believe they should start out with kind of the less useful quirks to the more strong quirks. I think it should start out with I see one quirk is sense of danger, and then start out with the float quirk, and then the smoke screen quirk, and then the others black whip and all for one should have came in later. That way he still has to prove himself, because those first 3 quirks aren't OP quirks, because at the end of the day, by end of season 1, basically, we already know who the top 3 students are, and Deku is definitely part of them. We see that clearly in that swim match they had. Thank you for checking out my video. I would definitely love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you and have a great day, week, month, year, decade. Bye!